Today, we want to talk about resilience and how that resilience and goal setting and how we manage resilience changes from the time we're diagnosed um, till the time that today is, right? So for me, that means I'm a little past 11 years from diagnosis, so I'm moving into my 12th year, and it looks really different than it did before. So we're gonna address some of those changes. I'm really honored to have my dear friend who's been with me a lot of this journey here today. I'm thrilled she's a Davis Phinney ambassador. And I believe that friendship and connections are partly what get us through and help keep us resilient. And so I'm really honored to introduce her both as a friend, but also as an expert living with young onset Parkinson's disease. And Claudia, thanks for joining us. Do you mind sharing your Parkinson's story with us a little bit for those of you that haven't had the honor to meet you yet?
Yes, thank you, Kat. My story is short about Parkinson. I was turning 50 years old in March, and in June I had a back pain. So I went to the doctor and my general primary care physician, and I was there with her, and she was looking and said, "You have shingles." And that was the reason of my pain, but I started shaking. My legs went crazy. So I'm more worried about that shaking. And she was so good that she directly sent me to the movement disorder specialist. And then I got diagnosed with Parkinson very soon.
So resilience is really the ability to thrive despite adversity. That's kind of the really short, quick definition. And all of us thrive in different ways. Some of us thrive and feel like we're resilient and healthy. And some of us define ourselves more by maybe what is going on in our day-to-day life. I've had the opportunity to kind of study this in a book that I co-authored with a friend several years ago. And I really enjoy talking about this because I think it's relevant whether you have Parkinson's or not, about how we move into aging. And yeah, I'm curious to hear what our panelists will come up with, and also how you keep it fresh in your lives. Do you set goals for yourself? This time of the year, a lot of people think about New Year's resolutions that may or may not be part of your jam, but it's often a time that we relook at things. Claudia, I'd love to hear too. I want you to chime in when you're ready to talk about how you've kept exercise and resilience fresh for yourself.
As I told you, when I went to the doctor, she said that one of the things that you can do for your Parkinson is to work out. And I went to my computer and I find out Davis Phinney Foundation about talking about high intensity exercise. And I think I started with maybe 3 days for exercise, focusing on Parkinson 3 days per week. And now it's going to be my 10th anniversary. I'm doing 6 sessions per week only for Parkinson exercise. Also Tai Chi, walking my dog, stretching, other things. But just for the high intensity, they said you need to be in 90 minutes per week. And I know I do more than 200 minutes. And I like it. And I think it has helped me to keep moving. Of course, the Parkinson's, you can see the progression. Of course, it progressed. But I love to exercise. And also I have found my community there. The community also helped me to keep going.
And you teach classes now some too, Claudia, right? And you back up the instructor a lot. And so that's been part of her commitment. She'll undersell that, but her enthusiasm is part of what makes it easy to show up for class. And the cheering on that happens in those classes really has been integral. And I think it keeps people coming back.
People say that I'm like an inspiration for them. I'm not sure about that. I think everybody is an inspiration. to all of us. But I put a lot of heart in my work with them. And also, this is a little advertising. We're gonna start. We're gonna start some classes on Fridays, the first Friday and third Friday of the month, for the Hispanic community, for people that can have a good mobility, focus on a good mobility. So it's Davis Phinney Foundation. It's behind me, and I'm gonna start. So if you want to join, it's so much fun, and you're gonna sweat a lot.
Yes, if you
And
have
you'll learn.
any, if you need any information about that, don't hesitate to reach out to us at content at Davis Phinney at dpf.org, content at dpf.org. And Claudia, can I ask you a question? And maybe this is actually something I could ask everybody. When I heard you list the amount of time you're working out, I thought I can't hit that mark without getting a setback if I'm going at certain intensity. So how do you navigate the sort of physical difficulty of that? Because I want to draw attention to a comment that Kelly put in the chat about remaining resilient through various practices, going on a retreat once a year to get away, reflect, step back, and regroup, and just reflective journaling and reading. So for me, I need to get a little bit of that sort of rest, and 200 would be a little high for me to go at an intensity. I could walk a lot of that, but I couldn't do intense exercise that much. So how do you keep yourself healthy while you're doing that?
Well, I think I live day per day, and I always tell myself that I'm gonna sleep at night and start over the next day. But as to your question, Chris, I take naps. I take naps in between the day. Otherwise, I couldn't do it. And I think exercising, in my case, it helps me, as I told you, with my movements, my mood, my sleeping, and my constipation. You poop.
Yeah.
I'm not watching a lot of television. I'm listening books instead of reading. So you make some changes in your life to sacrifice some things. And I don't have kids anymore at home, so that helps.
Yeah, thanks. Larry, I wonder if you might have,
Yeah.
sorry to jump in and point at Larry real quick, but I know Larry, you've done some pretty intense training too. So in terms of physical resilience, what have you done to make sure you stay healthy while you're engaging in your long-term exercise?
Yeah, well, I think it's on the topic of resilience, and I think we living in the Parkinson's world, we've got our own definition of resilience. We don't overcome, we have to adapt. And I think that goes to the way of how we live with Parkinson's, makes us resilient when we adapt to the changes that Parkinson brings to us every day. And the same as with exercise. There's some days where I don't feel like exercising, and then I give myself the time not to exercise. But then when I do want to exercise, I go as hard and as fast and as strong as I can, in my case. And for me, that's helped. But any kind of movement, I always encourage people to do whatever they can do. But I think we have to adapt to that as well. Some days are good and some days are bad. Some days I can do more and some days I can do less. And I think it's part of our own resilient makeup as we live through and deal with Parkinson's on a day-to-day basis.
And the more we have to pivot and change, often the better we can get at being resilient. Somebody asked earlier about, or mentioned earlier, that they have a setback or they have a tough day. That's part of resilience.
Yeah,
is also saying, dang it, this is hard. I've had to give this up, or, I'm not exercising nearly as many minutes as Claudia does a week, but I keep at it and I keep looking at it. But I am sad for the things that I can't do anymore, that I've had to pivot and change. And I think that part of resilience, and what those of us that are defining ourselves as resilient and are at this year after year, is our ability to circle back to, okay, maybe I'm not doing 200 minutes of high intensity interval fitness anymore, but I'm doing at least one day a week where I'm getting my heart rate up and I am pivoting and I'm walking around my property and um, for me up here, I'm getting outside and moving wood and doing things that bring me joy. That's a resilient thing. And defining those core values and coming back to those core values of I'm going to keep moving. I'm going to have little wins and it's going to look different each year.
I was thinking about a couple different things. One relates to sort of the adaptations as we are moving through our Parkinson's disease journey. And I remember when my husband was moving through his Parkinson's disease journey, he would get so down and frustrated when he couldn't do something anymore. And my response back to him was like, is it important to you? And if yes, let's see what accommodations we can make so that you can do those things that are meaningful and that you enjoy. And one of them was biking. And we, back in the day were fancy with their bikes and we had, we clipped into our pedals and, went for really long bike rides. And I mean, that just wasn't safe anymore to be clipped in. And so and then it was hard for him to swing his leg like up and over the bike. So I said, let's get a step through bike. That way you can enjoy it. You're not going to feel anxious. You're going to be able to, feel the sun on your face and the wind. And I feel like the reaction for him was like this weight sort of lifted, like, oh yeah, I can still do things. And then reinforced an element of being and feeling resilient. So that was what was coming up for me. And I'm finding that true now for myself as well. When I was first diagnosed in 2024, I had been exercising and I knew that exercise was important. I joined Rocksteady Boxing. And so I had 2 Rocksteady Boxing classes in a week. And then I had 2 of my regular exercise classes. And I thought, well, I'm going to like kick it out and do 5 days a week of exercise because the more, the better. And what ended up happening was I was trash on that Friday and in tears, and it wasn't serving me. So like taking a step back and thinking what really is going to serve me and my body is to exercise 4 days a week. And that is great. And now my Friday is reserved for other things. I still do walks and go to the dog park and, but I just wanted to share that it doesn't always mean giving up something that you love or, letting it go. It may mean sort of to your word, Kat, like pivoting. And I use the word sort of like, what are the accommodations we can make to help us continue to do the things that we really love and that we find meaning in.
Yeah. And we forget that things that Claudia mentioned, walking the dog, counting your steps, all of that goes towards the goal of keeping moving. Somebody else in the chat was saying getting outside. I think we undervalue that, getting fresh air every day, letting the sun, rain, clouds, wherever you are, touch your face and breathing some fresh air can be an integral part of staying grounded. And for me, it's an integral part of me staying healthy and therefore resilient is changing even if I'm in the house all day, I can still move. I can still go outside, breathe air, take a little loop with the dog, reshift my perspective. Going back to those core values, keeping my head out of the rabbit hole, changing the language I use with myself. If you're a goal setter, or I know some people also will have like a word for the year, those can be helpful. And Stan, you raised your hand. I saw you. You had something to chime in.
Yeah, so along those same lines, I think that an important part of resilience is positive self-compassion and
Absolutely.
feeling good about yourself and about your ability to pivot and do different things. I think you'd be more resilient if you have a positive attitude about your capabilities and who you are and what you want to do. I think mindfulness can help that as well.
Indeed. Totally agreed. That concept of mindfulness is sort of like being in the moment. If I know for me, if I start spinning off, oh gosh, I didn't do this, I didn't do that, I'm not feeling great, that if I can, okay, there I go again, right? Again, okay, I'm going to step back, take a deep breath. How do I reframe this? Okay, what can I do today? What can I do? I can, maybe chop up a few vegetables. It may take me a lot longer, but I can still do it. And saute some soup, or maybe I can soak those soup bones and make a little broth. How hard is that? Set the timer. Just that shift sometimes makes a difference. I think it's important to be thinking about who we share our goals with. Share them with your friends, share them with your partners, but also share them with your care team. My goal this year is, I'm going to just say it personally, to have fewer bladder infections. Okay, so how am I going to do that? First off, I'm going to cue in my care team, um, and focus on some things that I can do to pivot. And then what can I change? Okay, there's probably a few dietary things I can change. But if I keep all that to myself, my husband doesn't even know I'm working on it. I'm not sure we needed to do that last batch of chocolate chip cookies. That may have just tipped things over the edge. It's more than you ever wanted to know about me. But those kinds of things, those are how you pivot.
Well, you can send me any extra chocolate chip cookies you have, Kat. Just say that.
Thank you. What we've done is just take them everywhere we go and give them away. Take them to your drill night, Ken. Give them to all your team. Our daughter came up to visit. She's taking some of them. So,
I want to jump in on something you just said to follow up, because a care provider that we connect with somewhat frequently said to me not too long ago that one way that they have tried to sort of orient their visits with the people they see as patients is to ask not like, what's the hardest thing you're dealing with today, but what do you want to accomplish? Like, what's your goal? And I think that whether your doctor approaches it that way or not, I think it's a good way to approach your visits, to go in saying, this is what I want to get done, and then see what they tell you about how they think you could, what they recommend to help you get there. And I think I might have talked over
also can't
Amber.
read your mind.
Yeah.
They also cannot read your mind. If my goal is reducing bladder infections, and they're thinking, gosh, her tremor looks really intense today, let's manage that, I don't give them an opportunity.
I was thinking one sort of unrelated thing, and that is I think I've been resilient long before I had Parkinson's disease. And I was thinking, well, how did I get to be resilient? And I think, like a lot of things, it's a combination of what you're born with and what your environment is. My father was one thing that I really value, that I got from him, is his resilience. He just didn't give up, and I really admired that, and I think I've made it part of what I want to be. So I think that there's a lot of different interesting factors about how we are more or less resilient, and then we get Parkinson's disease and we're tested.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I'm typing in the chat. I think being resilient is a practice. Like anything else, you get better at it as you practice it. Just like being mindful, practicing yoga, meditation, high intensity interval training, boxing, drinking water, right? If we repeat it and make it a habit, it gets easier to do. And the longer we have Parkinson's, the more opportunities there are to learn how to circle back and be resilient. We may not love those opportunities, but they are opportunities. Miss Amber, I see you're off mute again.
I'm off mute because I wasn't trying to come off mute originally. Sorry, Chris. And then something happened with my computer.
Okay.
But I'll stay off of mute just so that way nothing happens again.
Well, that way you can not let me talk over you if it happens. So that, because I
You are not.
Good. I thought, well, I'd like to stay on this topic of the kind of goals. What do we do when we don't want to set goals for a second? We want to share goals for a second, because I guess I just think that that's an interesting problem. And I wonder, I think I want to put Sri on the spot for a second, if I can. I mean, for you, Sri, I know you've often said on these calls before that you don't really find yourself to be a person who works out very much. Is that a fair thing to say about your life at this point?
I think that is a very fair thing to say.
Does that have anything to do with goals for you? I just occurred to me that I didn't know if that was a part of it.
By working out, you mean exercising?
Yeah, that's I'm thinking about it in that way. But maybe there's another way in which you don't like setting goals. I don't know. Maybe just I don't know. Can you comment on this?
Well, I was diagnosed the same year that Kat was, so it'll be my 10th, 11th, 12th year, however you calculate it. It's been a while. It's been over a decade since I was diagnosed. And when I first got diagnosed, I'm like, I'm going to do everything perfectly. I'm going to be the most perfect Parkinson's patient ever that there was. So I took Tai Chi classes. When I traveled to visit my sister on the East Coast, I found a Tai Chi person there, took one-on-one lessons. He said I was doing amazing. I took tango classes, Argentine tango classes. I signed up for, I think, LSVT Big at Kaiser, or doing like big movement at Kaiser. I did all the things when I was first diagnosed. And then it kind of went like maybe year 3, year 4. And then what happened is I thought, I cannot stay behind this desk job that I have anymore. I had the opportunity for doing a much more physical job 7 years into Parkinson's diagnosis. And so I took that job. And so that job was then my workout, because I'd be carrying like 15 pounds, 20 pounds of equipment on my back, squatting, lying on my back, doing all sorts of weird positions, climbing up things and feeling vertigo and claustrophobia. So that kept me pretty much in shape. I don't know if that was at the high interval intensity level, but it kept me in shape. And then I started to find myself going into depression after 2 years of doing that. And so the past year and a half has been actually zero exercise, unless you count getting up from my bed, going to the coffee pot, not drinking the coffee, not drinking the water, going to the mailbox once a week. And so for me, I've never thought of myself as resilient. That word and I have never meshed together. I mean, I've never proactively, consciously thought about it. I know other friends have told me that I'm resilient, but it's just something I never self-identified as. But what I find myself now thinking is, I am pretty resilient, because here I am depressed, going into year whatever of Parkinson's disease, and I'm making changes. I find that I'm an all or nothing type of person. And that's part of having ADHD. So if anybody else out there has Parkinson's and ADHD, please message me through the Davis Phinney Foundation's Ambassador Program. We'd be happy to chat with you about that and the complexities of having that with Parkinson's disease. But the ADHD makes me think like I have to go exercise like Claudia or whatever, 7 days a week, 6 days a week, 90 minutes a day. And if I can't do that on my very first week, then I'm a failure.
And you're failing.
Then I'm failing. And so then I won't do what maybe the logical thing is, which is, hey, why not just try exercising 1 day a week? And then maybe in 2 weeks, bring it up to 2 days a week. And maybe in 2 months, you'll be at 2.5 days a week. That does not occur to me. So that type of thinking I have to consciously invoke.
So Sri, does it help for you to set goals or make a goal, or do you find it's less helpful?
I find I have an amazing talent for making goals and then forgetting about them.
I've heard that a lot. How many panelists make goals every year?
Every day.
Yeah. Awesome. So I was a midwife, and we talked about birth plans, right? And then I changed it. These are goals that people are setting. I find that I try to have kind of a to-do list, but it's my must. And I feel good crossing those things out. Is that part of why you guys write things down, goals every day, is so you can cross them off? Panelists? Yeah.
It's the best feeling.
That's the best feeling. But what I also do, I'm like Sri, is if I make a goal and then I'm not meeting it, I feel like I'm failing. And so I've tried to learn to be gentler with myself. And but that's also where I think getting our team involved. It circles in a lot of things into this idea of wellness and resilience and how we define ourselves. So it's something to think about. I don't think we're going to solve it or make a one-size-fits-all, but it also mimics Stan saying that self-compassion. having compassion for ourselves, saying, okay, it was my goal and I ended up having 6 bladder infections this year, but I changed some behaviors, right? Can I give myself some grace around that? I don't know. CV, I'll announce it in 2027. Yeah, Claudia, for sure, jump in. And then Robert, I don't know if you have anything to add.
Something quick. When I say my minutes that I work out, I didn't realize that that could be like, oh my God, I will never do that. So it's, as you said, as Larry said, not every day is the same. So you do what you can do. I don't set goals. I always try to live my day and say, I'm going to go to the gym. If I can, I go. Sometimes I do less. Sometimes I do better. What I like to see is how good I did after that. And that makes me proud. So I don't set goals free. If you don't set goals, you are going to be more successful. I think so. It's like Kat said, and the to-do list, like Stephanie and Kat, I don't do that because I'm the worst doing list. But don't set goals, just say, tomorrow I'm going to go to the gym. And that's one goal for just 24 hours. And it's okay if you don't go to the 5 days after that, but it's okay when you return back.
I will say to that, that is very hard for me to even do that just because of the ADHD, because I firmly believe I have 2 brains. Medical world, look out, this is news. I have 2 brains. One is my ADHD brain and one is my Parkinson's brain. And I truly believe down to the depth of my bones that I know which brain is operating and causing which symptoms. So part of me wants to go to the gym, but then ADHD will say, oh, that's boring. And then I'll say, oh, maybe I'll just put on my shoes and go to the garage and do like some treadmill. And then I'll turn on the treadmill. And then I'm like, oh, it's too cold. Never mind. I'll go and get some hot water, some hot tea. And then I'll think, oh, maybe I'll go back and try the 5-pound weights. And I'll do the 5-pound weights. And I'll do that great for 50 minutes on one day, but I'll forget about it the next day. So for me, I have to find, like when I'm starting to learn that when I'm setting a goal, it has to be a very doable goal. But it's just like, why don't I go out and take a walk? So one thing I've been doing every day that hasn't been an official goal, but a kind of default goal is when I wake up in the morning now, I immediately go outside, and I get the sun on my face. Wow. And that is, I kind of am worried. I think maybe this is to your point, Kat or Claudia, that if I make it a goal, I won't do it. So I'm just like, it's like just a little encouragement. Just go outside for 5 minutes. Just go outside. Just one foot ahead of the other. And that has been working for me for the past week. Next week, I don't know. But this week, it's going okay.
So, Sri, what you were just saying draws my attention to a comment that was in the chat. That there sounds like it was a comment that was kind of about whether we're talking about consistency or resilience. And I think it wasn't said in that comment, but I think it also relates to motivation and how we stay active. And anyway, I just want to call out that it sounds like that's maybe what you're talking about a little bit, is like the consistency is hard to find when you're navigating all the nuances of your experience of Parkinson's. And I certainly have that in my experience of Parkinson's too, that all of the variables make it hard to be consistent, although I can consistently approach the challenges of staying active and switching gears and turning my focus in other ways. I can consistently approach that actively, although what I actually do may be different. I can be consistent in responding to those variables, but I can't necessarily always say I'm going to get a run 3 days a week, because it may not be feasible given the timing of my doses and whether they hit, et cetera, et cetera. So consistency and resilience are maybe kind of at odds sometimes.
I'm always fascinated when you go to the gym in January and it's flooded with people that have come in. And I was thinking and talking to my family about it. And when it comes to New Year's resolutions, I think we put too much pressure on each other. We're going to do that marathon. We're going to complete a marathon in under 4 hours. We're going to drop 50 pounds. We're going to, travel the world. And then 6 weeks later, we're back on the couch. So, I think we can celebrate the goal setting. It doesn't have to be these unattainable, but celebrate that small increment. Go to the gym once a week. You don't commit to 5 days a week. I'm going to be at gym at 6 o'clock every morning. go Monday. If you don't go Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, that's okay, but you went on Monday. So, goal setting for us with Parkinson's is obviously more difficult because we don't know, what day we're going to have. But I think it's all part of the reasonable goal setting to make us keep consistent, and that goes to consistency, that goes to achieving, and that goes to living well with Parkinson, which is the broader, all-encompassing, resilient people that we are.
And even just putting moving my body on the calendar. I used to be like Claudia, like, okay, I at least, I think I've shared this before in this group, that all I had to do was get to my exercise class. I would talk myself into it from bed. All I have to do is drive there. If I could get there, and I usually would end up working out. Now I put moving 5 days a week on my calendar. I'm going to get out and move. And so if that is, I'm moving wood today, great. That's a great day. If all I do is get out and walk the dog, take some deep breaths, let the sun hit my face, I still did it, but it looked different.
I'm reading some of the comments, and what it helps me, and one people that comment over there, it's to having a friend in the gym that you actually say, see you next Monday. So you are going to be there because you just speak out and say, see you the next Monday. So here is my friend Marlene in the chat. And I work out with her and we get together, and I think it's a good thing to have a friend.
I actually like what you just said too, Claudia, because that's an experience for me too that is a benefit to going to a gym, is that there's so many different things that I like. The city gym is where I go here in Bend, and there's so many different things I can do. So if I feel like my gait is not going to be compatible with being on a treadmill or going for a run outside or even walking, I can try something else. And maybe it's yoga, maybe it's a bike, maybe it's swimming, whatever. And it's just, you get to see people that are doing the same thing where they're not necessarily always doing the same things every day. And it just sort of feels like a community that way.
Robert, I'm curious to hear, you got yourself off mute. I'm glad you joined us, and I'd love to give you an opportunity to chime in.
I have several different thoughts, and I'm trying to figure out how to make them into one coherent comment. First of all, I think all of us need to recognize how resilient we are, and by resilient, I want to talk about more than just getting to the gym. It's more than just whether we're keeping our exercise commitments. But I know for myself, I've been through a lot in life. There's been lots of losses and lots of medical challenges, but I'm still here, and I'm still being active and fighting and trying to be a productive person. And I think we all need to give ourselves credit for the ways in which we're resilient beyond just whether we're getting to the gym or not.
Indeed. Great point, Robert. Absolutely.
And then another thread that I've been making notes about here is being kind to ourselves, and being, I know when I get a bladder infection, it's 2 weeks of being sick and at least 2 weeks of being recovered. After I get well, it takes me 2 weeks to get my strength back and then get back into going to my Roxy classes. And so I've been not being active or not exercising for 4 weeks by the time I get back to it. And in that time, I've lost some of my edge. But I
lost that bump, right? It's the back to square one.
Exactly. But I have to be kind to myself and say that's okay. I'm back at the gym, I'm working out, and it's okay. So I think allowing ourselves space to be okay with whatever is happening in our lives, that we don't have to be perfect anymore. And I've spent a lot of my life trying to be perfect, and I don't have to do that anymore.
Yeah. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, Robert, but maybe being honest. For me, it's being honest with myself. It's going to take me a while, but I'm going to continue to get outside, and I'm not going to do this dance in my head where it's going to take me weeks to be ready to chop wood again. right? Right. But I'm still getting outside. And instead of looking at that like a fail in the negative column, I look at that in the positive column, that is resilient behavior. Getting outside is a win. Again, not falling down the stairs and not tripping over the dog leash and not doing all those things, right? That's a win. And yes, yesterday's win or last week's win was really different, but I'm still winning and putting it in the win column. And I think that's the behavior, the self-compassion, the grace that we must learn to give ourselves as we navigate these challenges.
When you say chopping wood, do you literally mean chopping wood?
Chen chops it. I cut it with a chainsaw. So yeah, I do.
Okay. It really is. Okay, fine. I just wanted to clarify.
It's been my lifelong goal to retire and be able to do this. And I can't every day by any means. I have electric things that help me do it. And I have some little ones and I have some bigger ones. Ken does the this part. I don't do that part anymore.
Okay, good to know. I used to do that.
Yeah. No, my hands can't do that, but I can use the chainsaw still. Stacking wood, moving things. It's a little bit of a euphemism, but it's
but it's not.
yeah.
Kat, you just drew my attention to a comment that we had in the chat too, and Larry, thanks for letting us stay on that for a second. And the comment was about, somebody who was had some falls. It was from someone who's had some falls, and saying that they were having trouble getting out in order to get the social connection and that sort of support. So I wonder if we can talk about that a little bit, because I think that there's ways that can be, you can work around that too, maybe. But I don't know. What do we think? Is there anything that anybody can suggest about how to sort of take the getting out part of what we've said and turn it to something for someone who's maybe not able to get out as much because of the conditions in their environment or their circumstances?
Absolutely. I mean, even this is not really an interactive social activity, but there are lots of support groups online. There's even calling. I know that I'll call a friend and do Zoom. Claudia and I did this yesterday. It's easier for me to Zoom sometimes than to hold my telephone. So it's not the same. I'm not going to say it's the same as in person, but at least it's interaction kind of face to face. That can be helpful. What are other people's thoughts?
Well, I met somebody that he was a 70-year-old person with Parkinson's, and he started off not ever leaving the house. In fact, he never got dressed. So when I met him, he admitted to me that he got up in the morning and just lazed around the house in his pajamas. And so I said to him, okay, so let's just play this out. Commit to getting dressed in the morning. Commit to, making your bed. And then he, over a couple of weeks, we kept in touch, and he did that and felt good about that. Then he started walking outside. And now he's at Dancing with Parkinson's, physically. He did it online first. And I think that is a great example of the little steps. Instead of him thinking, wow, I'm the pressure to get dressed, make my bed, get out, go dancing was too much. It was over a 4 to 5 month period of time, and I think it's a credit to him and taking those little steps and those little goal setting to get socializing again. But I do, to your actual question and answer, Chris, I think it starts with acceptance. I think we've got to get to the point of, we are social beings, and even with Parkinson's, we've still got a role to play and a part of society. And I think it does require that realization before we can move forward, I think.
The one thing I've noticed is I have Parkinson's, and my dad, who I live with, also has Parkinson's. And the way he struggles with his Parkinson's is very different than the way I do. And I noticed that in him, he's 82 years old. He sometimes finds it very frustrating to not be able to do the things he used to do. And for me, I just tend to naturally find another solution. I don't bemoan the loss of that too much. I just tend to move on. I don't know how I'm able to do that. I might cry at night. I don't know. But with my dad, I noticed that it's much more of like, oh man, I should be able to do this. I can't do this. And there's a lot of like angry yells and frustration that happen. He's also not a very social person, particularly. So he's never going to be the guy that goes to support groups. He's just not going to tune in on Zoom calls. That's never going to be who he is or what he'll do, no matter how much I encourage him. So what we've decided to do to make sure or help him with his resilience is really encourage him to make sure he showers every day, which he does normally. He's actually still able to manage very well. But to invite people over, which can be a lot of extra work in terms of cooking and cleaning and all that sort of thing. But to have people come over once a week, once every 2 weeks, to have him go to the community temple and just gently push him to just kind of like, I know you're tired, but this will be really good for you. If you are too tired to stay for the whole 2 hours, I'll come and pick you up. So little things like that to get him out of the house. And I realized that some people who have resilience, and resilience is a practice, absolutely, but you also need to be able to practice it with other people. Like you need your friends to support you and encourage you to be resilient, because sometimes you're not able to do that for yourself. And to have that kind of friend group or family group surrounding you is, I think, really vital to help you get resilient when you're not able to do it all on your own.
You know, Sri, you just called to my mind the care partner intersection here. And I wonder if I might put Stephanie on the spot here and see if you have a perspective on how a care partner experiences this, given your experience with your husband.
That is a really good question, Chris. And I think my experience in sort of maintaining some sense of resiliency was really hard because I was exhausted and, I was trying to do the things that we know are good for our mental and physical health, and seeing a therapist and having coffee with friends. And I mean, to be honest, there were moments where I was like, I am not the care partner that I want to be right now. I'm just I feel irritable, impatient. I'm, lashing out. I want to throw things across the room. And getting a good night's sleep like made a huge difference in starting up again the next day. But I think I'm glad you named that, Chris, because I think it's very challenging for care partners who are doing like a lot of the physical caregiving and the emotional caregiving and the anticipatory grieving, all of that. Yeah, it was challenging for me.
And I don't mean to say that Shri wasn't expressing this story too, right? It was just from a different perspective as a care partner. I mean, I think you were describing care partner experiences, Shri, but it's just for your parent is a little different than for your husband.
Well, I wouldn't call myself a care partner. I'm just like a daughter trying to help a mom who's helping her husband.
Sure.
I mean, that sort of thing. I think she is definitely the true care partner. And Stephanie, I think she can relate to a lot of what you're saying. So
I also think it's important that we ask our folks. My dad also had Parkinson's. I know I've brought that up before, and I was not his primary caretaker. My stepmother was, but asking what his goals were. And I know for my dad, exercise was not his goal. He had spent a lifetime of being super physically active. He wanted to enjoy time with family. He wanted to have meaningful conversations, and he was pretty clear about what he wanted and didn't want. And for me as his daughter, I know that I was really engaged in trying to honor what he wanted and trying to not inject all that I've been learning about Parkinson's, right? So that, well, we need to get you moving, Dad, and I have this agenda. And he was incredibly supportive of what I was doing for myself and very clear what worked and didn't work for him. And I really believe people have a right to that also. I think it's really hard to navigate, Stephanie, that what you want to do and what folks want to do. It's a tough one.
That's why I love to ask my most favorite question to folks, and that is, what is most important to you right now? And let them lead that. And for Rick, it was being with family. Like, okay, let's make that happen.
Yeah.
Let's have people over. Let's, make sure that, the people who you want to spend your days with are here and engaged. And that's where our energy should be focusing.
I love that, Stephanie. And I hate to do this. My gosh, this hour has flown by for all of us. I just want to say how much I appreciate sharing this panel with so many insightful people who are really practicing a lot of resilient behaviors. I think we touched on a lot of things. Resilience is not just exercise. It's about a practice. It's about being well. It's about how we thrive despite being diagnosed with Parkinson's. And it's lovely to hear from all of you. And I really thank everybody for showing up. Chris is going to give us some details and take us out of here. I hope this was a meaningful topic. And again, I'm really grateful to the Davis Phinney Foundation for helping support and encourage resilience with those of us. So, Chris, I'm going to send it over to you. And Claudia, thank you for joining us. Hey, Amo.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for being here, Claudia. Thanks to all the panelists, and thanks to the audience. I just want to say, about our next meetup. It's February 19th, always the third Thursday. So, keep your eyes peeled for that. We'll look forward to seeing everybody back then. I want to say I think I missed an opportunity to get another topic on this call when I sort of passed over something in the chat that made me think, Amber, you have a particular perspective that we could have talked about, which is the young onset, the parenting perspective, and what that brings to the resilience equation. So I think it's a shame we didn't get to that. And maybe we can find a way to feature that in another context. And unless you have something you wanted to add to the conversation at this point about it.
I mean, I felt like there wasn't a lot I could contribute because I do not work out because I am hauling kids around. I'm working full time. I'm trying to go to the doctor, do all the things I need to do. So, that is pretty far down on my list.
But that's exactly the reason I think it's an important subject.
Right.
So I think
you're resilient.
That for sure.
Amen.
So hopefully we'll do that. If not before the next meetup, we can find a way to get to some things, get some presentation with that. We'll do it. Hopefully, maybe we can find a way to fold that in next time. And anyway, thanks everybody for being here, and thanks to the panelists. We'll see you all next month on February 19th. And between then and now, take care, everybody.
Bye.